Senate has passed the big, beautiful bill that happened right at the start of the first hour of today's program. It will now go back to the House. End result is going to be passage. Seems to be, I would say, general happiness over this passing, but also I don't know that I've picked up on this before, a demand for perfection in bills, the likes of which I have not seen in the past. All bills passed by Congress are imperfect. Many of them are unfortunately awful, which is why, in many ways, I would just like less government. I think most of you out there would like less government. Just get out of the way and let individual excellence triumph, which is how you get the economy growing. But this bill, I think, will aid substantially in getting the economy growing. It will provide certainty on tax rates. It will further shut down the southern border. It is imperfect, as all acts of Congress are, but I believe the net benefits are very much in a positive direction. Now, for those of you out there that are concerned about government spending, you're right. The government spending is out of control. There is not, however, the political will to address government spending, either on the Democrat or the Republican side. It doesn't exist. If you argue for it, in cutting government spending, cutting entitlements, all these things, you don't get elected. And to Buck's point, eventually communists take power and they spend more money and they tax you at a higher rate. So I don't know who the great communicator is going to be that can actually sit down. I feel like in many ways, back in the day, some of you will remember this, Ross Perot used to just buy commercial time in 1992, and he had his lectern.
Can it finish?
He had his lectern, and he had his pointer, and he would stand there and just make the case as a executive would about how government spending was out of control. I think Ron Johnson is right on this. I think Rand Paul is right on this. We have allowed embedded spending excess to be continued from COVID. I agree with all of it. The political will to address it isn't there. And Democrats, this is where they win a lot of these arguments because they have established the definition of a cut is actually slowing the rate of growth. I've never heard of this being applied anywhere else. This is really
this was true of Republicans in the Tea Party era. Trying with there was a huge fight, and it was about slowing the rate of the increase of spending. It was about spending less of a bringing the trajectory of increased spending down just a little bit, and a decrease in the increase.
Yes,
and this was a huge political fight back in the Tea Party days a decade ago. So yeah, I don't want to be dismissive or cynical about it, but usually when I say that, it's because I'm about to be. We just haven't suffered enough. People haven't spent enough. They haven't seen enough of their grandchildren not living up to the quality of life that they themselves had, or we haven't seen enough money going to paying interest and having that crowd out private spending. We haven't seen enough of the tax raises that eventually are going to be a part of trying to stabilize this. That's or happiness, because we're going into a holiday weekend and I already have holiday brain going on here a little bit. Or, Clay, we find ways that AI and productivity and growth are so profound that it's something of a fiscal miracle, right? I mean, we become so productive and so efficient as an economy that we're able to grow our way, if not out of it, grow our way to continued stability with it. That's a possibility as well. I don't think there are people who believe that AI is going to be more transformational than even the internet has been. Think about that for a second. So no one really knows what that means in terms of how much wealth, people think of wealth as zero sum, and it's not. Now I'm borrowing from Naval Ravikant. He's a very smart guy. Status is zero sum. Wealth can actually be something that is real and that is broadly shared. We are all a lot richer than the richest people were in the 1500s. Why is that, right? The world has gotten a lot wealthier, not just individuals. Status is a different thing. That's zero sum. So I just don't know if we've reached the point. I don't think we have reached the point as a country where we want to tackle the problem. Maybe we want to see if we can grow our way out of it, and that's where we are. So any noise to the contrary right now is unfortunately just that noise.
I think the argument that might cut through from a communication perspective is if you put on 10 pounds of weight every year and then suddenly you only put on 3, you're getting fat slower, but you're still getting fatter. And the whole idea that slowing the rate of an increase or slowing the rate of growth as a cut is one of the most pernicious, I think, realities that has been allowed to exist in the way we even have conversation. This is where the left does a better job with language, because defining a cut as something that actually leads to something being greater is really what they do in essence. Because what it means is once they get the money spent, they never dial back from the money that has been spent. They embed it.
It's like revenue versus taxes. They don't use the word tax, really. If they can avoid it, they'll say revenue. Because revenue is just money the government has, which is good and goes to investing. That's what they'll also say. We need to invest more in the following programs because investing sounds good. What they mean is take your money under the threat of fines and or imprisonment and put it into things that the government decides are payoffs for the constituents that they need to pay off. That's what it actually is. But they play games with the language. I said this to Clay off air. I'll say it to all of you. It's the same thing when you talk about minimum wage. Minimum wage is economically a flawed concept. It does not work the way it is intended to work. It never has. It never will. Doesn't matter. People like it. And if you say don't pay minimum wage, you know what happens? You lose. So it's very hard. And you could say, well, I'll just convince people, make a better argument. You can convince some people. Can you convince enough people that the communists who are just going to shout, you're a fat cat, they play the politics of envy, the Mamdani routine. Look, this Mamdani stuff none of this is new. It's the same thing with Bernie Sanders. Did you see Bernie Sanders sitting down with Joe Rogan recently, I might add, talking about the lawsuits that Trump is filing? You know what Bernie Sanders does whenever he's cornered with a stupid argument? He pretends he doesn't know the details. This is what he does. He does this with economics, too, I might add. Well, you know what? I don't have the facts and the figures on that, so I can't get into it. No, it's because his arguments are trash, Clay. But Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, AOC, they're all doing the same thing, which is ignoring history, ignoring math, and telling people they have a secret sauce, a secret formula that's going to make everybody feel like they're getting enough and they're good enough and everything is fine. It is always a lie. But it's a very appealing lie.
Something that Trump is going to focus on, Buck, that I'm starting to see attention on that I think could be transformative. Okay, we've talked now the big beautiful bill is eventually going to pass in some fashions. Pass the Senate, pass the House. They have to reconcile them, but I don't think it's going to suddenly blow up. There's going to be some form of a bill that passes. Okay, so that is now moving forward in the agenda. There is now, and I think this is going to be potentially transformative, momentum to not count illegal immigrants for purposes of the House seats. Have you seen this? This could be hugely important, and it's structural, and it's massive. First of all, we need a new census because I think they screwed it up, and it would change the way that the 2028 election map is set up, because it would mean that even if Democrats won Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the electoral votes are not there to allow them to be able to win 270 to 268. Unfortunately, the electoral college not going to be shifted. It doesn't appear till after 2030. But what no one talks about that I think Trump could get behind, and this could be really important too, is they count illegal immigrants for purposes of House seats. And the number is roughly 730 or 740,000 congressmen represent individuals. If you said, hey, we're not counting illegal immigrants at all for purposes of House seats, this would mean that the House was not winnable for Democrats. They may win the House back in 2026. But structurally, if I were now the Trump team and I were giving them advice on something that I think would be transformative in the illegal immigrant space, it would be, let's make it clear that you cannot count illegal immigrants for purposes of redistricting House seats and districting House seats. And this would probably knock at least 10 Democrat seats out of control. Why in the world should these people be counted and it be the case that Democrats benefit overwhelmingly off of people that are not citizens? Not them voting, but just them being counted for census purposes. This means that big cities and blue states that have encouraged illegal immigrants to come into their locations would be dialed back in their impact, and this would have a substantial impact going forward. I think it's one of the big things that I would say, hey, now that we got this done, let's focus on that.
Well, it also goes to the perception people have, which I think is in this case correct, which is that the system is rigged. Because if you're a political party that is benefiting from violations of law, you are benefiting in terms of, cold, hard facts of power when it comes to leveraging something that is the mass violation, the serial violation of American law. That's not the way the game is supposed to be played. All right. The refs have been paid off. This is a problem. And it's, as you point out, a substantial one, a big one by the numbers. So, yeah, this is why I keep saying, though, with the big, beautiful bill, the illegals situation, this is why this is the number one reason in my mind that Trump won the election as convincingly as he did. I know there's other stuff. There's a million things, okay? It's always you're taking a snapshot of the way that 150 million people decided to click one box or the other. But immigration is the single issue that I think motivated more people to get behind Trump. And this has to start getting fixed right now. Because what we saw under Joe Biden, that is truly unsustainable if you want to consider this to be America going forward. Not in 50 years, in 5 years. You can't have another 10 million illegals pile into this country on top of the illegals that are already here and think that this is still going to be what we've thought it is. And Clay, it's already having a huge political effect, as we see. You have all these cities that are trying to thwart federal law enforcement. Well, that's because the political power of the illegal constituents in those cities is huge.
And they know that they have to try and preserve it. We'll take some calls on this, and we'll take some of your calls. We don't have any guests scheduled today. 800-282-2882. You can always talk back. Lots of emails rolling in. We'll dive into some of those because a lot of you have big takes on all of that as well.
Clay wants to cut your Social Security, so call in and yell at him.
Decision. This is why I don't have to run for elective office. I can actually tell you the truth as opposed to having to lie to everybody and be like, hey, it's a magical world. Everybody's going to get more money than you ever put in, and there's not going to be any consequences. Hey, yay. Everybody gets ice cream every day for meals. Let's eat birthday cake every day for breakfast, and you're not going to get fat. The decisions about healthcare coverage and which plan's right for you don't come easy. In most cases, like choosing the best of the worst. On something as important as your healthcare insurance, you want to feel good about the decisions you make. Why settle for a government plan like the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare, when there's a better option out there? It's called Ease for Everyone. It offers affordable health care for as low as $262 a month. You can keep your doctor, never pay a deductible, access over 400 prescription drugs for free. Go online to the website, see what plan is right for you and your family. Ease for Everyone, developed by forward-thinking experts located in Nashville, Tennessee. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Clay. Join today. That's easeforeveryone.com/Clay. $262. Check it out, easeforeveryone.com/Clay.